My name's Raymond Carter, if you want the full deal. Born in West Texas, drove rigs for 26 years. No seminary degree, no fancy background, just a man trying to put food on the table and stay awake on long desert roads. I wasn't religious, not really. I believed in God, sure. But Jesus? That was someone other people followed. I figured I'd sort that part out when I got older. But then one night, driving down I-10, something happened that ripped the world I knew to pieces. I died. Just like that. Chest locked up. Everything went black. But I didn't stay gone. I left my body, and I saw. I saw a realm beyond this one. I stood before Jesus Christ. Not an idea, not a ghost. A king, a warrior, a judge. And he didn't waste time. He showed me the war we're all caught in. The spiritual war behind the headlines, behind the politics, behind the fake peace treaties. He opened my eyes to a hidden agenda running deep through governments, media, even religion. A deception so smooth, people never question it. But the worst part? He showed me what's coming for Israel, and why everything hinges on her finally recognizing him. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't some New Age vision. It was a near-death experience that broke every lie I had built my life around. And what I saw wasn't just for me, it was a revelation meant for everyone. I saw how the elite are preparing the world to embrace a false Messiah. I saw the temple, the betrayal, the mourning, and finally, I saw the return of Christ, not as a baby in a manger, but as the commander of heaven's armies. So stick with me. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what I was shown, step by step, from Israel's spiritual blindness to the final awakening that will change the world forever. You need to hear this. You deserve to hear this before it's too late. Comment below. Where are you watching from, and what time is it where you are right now? I want to see how far this truth is reaching. And before we go further, subscribe to the channel Truth from Beyond. If you've ever felt like there's more going on behind the curtain, like something isn't adding up, then you can't afford to miss what's coming next. I'm not just telling a story, I'm delivering a warning, straight from the edge of death. I should have died that night. Honestly, I think I did. I was driving my rig through Nevada, empty highway, midnight silence, just me and the hum of diesel, somewhere between Wendover and nowhere. My chest tightened like someone dropped an anchor in it. I blacked out behind the wheel. No warning, no time to pray, just darkness swallowing me whole. But what happened next wasn't a dream, and I'll swear on my grave that it wasn't a hallucination. I was taken, out of my body, out of time, and I found myself in a realm where everything was raw, exposed, no secrets, no shadows. Jesus stood there, not how I imagined him. He didn't say a word at first, just looked at me, and in that look, I felt the weight of centuries. Then he spoke, and when he did, it was like my soul cracked open. He showed me something I never paid attention to before. Israel. Not as a dot on a map, not just headlines about war or politics, but as the center of a spiritual war that's been raging since the dawn of time. I saw ancient scrolls unravel in midair, prophecies that lit up with fire, some fulfilled, some still waiting. He told me, "They are my chosen ones. My covenant still stands." It was like watching the heart of history beat in front of me. Not Rome, not Washington, not Beijing, Israel. Every empire rises and falls around it. Every agenda, every war, every piece of the puzzle somehow bends back to Jerusalem. I realized I had lived my whole life blind to the very place God never took his eyes off. And then I saw it, a flash of what's still to come. The world trying to tear Israel apart, and yet, God preserving her. Like a lighthouse in a hurricane. The elite, he said, are trying to manipulate the narrative. Behind the scenes, powers are aligning. Media, tech giants, banking systems, they carry a hidden agenda to erase Israel's role in God's redemptive plan. But the scriptures don't lie. Ezekiel, Isaiah, Zechariah, all pointing to a moment when Israel would look upon the one they pierced. He told me, "It's not a myth, it's the map. My return is not random, it revolves around them." I felt shame, honestly. I'd ignored Israel, thought it was someone else's problem. But the truth was, everything was building toward one final revelation. I wanted to argue. I mean, why Israel? Why not all nations the same? But he looked through me again and said, "The bloodline matters. The covenant matters." I was shown visions, moments in history where God reached for Israel again and again, even through their rebellion, their exile, their pain. And still, he preserved them. I saw angelic battles in the skies over that land, demons trying to rewrite prophecy. Every attempt at genocide, every lie in the textbooks, every distorted headline. It was part of a massive deception. But the timeline can't be altered. What he promised will stand. And that promise includes a moment, soon, when the veil over Israel's eyes will tear. But not yet. There are still more things that must unfold. Before I was pulled back into my body, gasping for breath, heart pounding in the cab of my truck, he left me with this: "Speak. Tell them what's coming. What's hidden will be revealed. Israel will awaken, and when she does, the world will know who I am." I opened my eyes with tears streaming down my face. I wasn't just a trucker anymore. I'd been drafted into something eternal, and that was just the beginning. Because what he showed me next was even harder to bear. I remember what I saw next like a scar on the soul. Right after the revelation about Israel, Jesus took me through what he called the grief of rejection. And I felt it. Not like a history lesson, but like a wound still bleeding in him. He showed me the streets of Jerusalem, the ancient dust clinging to sandals, the palms waving as he entered on a donkey. And then the silence, the betrayal, the cross. But what struck me most wasn't the crucifixion itself. It was what happened in the hearts of his own people. I saw a veil, spiritual and thick like smoke, fall over the nation. And he whispered, "They didn't see me. Not really." My heart broke in that moment, because I knew exactly what he meant. I had lived most of my life in a fog too. He showed me how deep that spiritual blindness went, how the rabbinic leaders, many sincere, many deceived, had built walls of doctrine so high they couldn't see the Messiah standing in front of them. Jesus fulfilled prophecy after prophecy, born in Bethlehem, riding into Zion, pierced and rejected, and yet they still called him a fraud. Some even worse. I was shown actual words uttered over centuries. Sorcerer, false prophet, blasphemer. I watched as layers of tradition became armor against truth. And yet Jesus didn't look at them with anger. He wept. I could feel his heartbreak for them, his chosen, his brothers by blood. But there was more. He told me their rejection wasn't failure. It was design, a mystery, a delay, not a denial. The scene changed, and I found myself standing beside Paul. Yes, that Paul, as if in a suspended vision from Romans 11. He was teaching, pleading, declaring that Israel's fall was not final, that it was through their temporary blindness that the gospel went to the Gentiles. "Do not be arrogant," Paul warned, words that pierced me, because I'd heard Christians, even pastors, say Israel was irrelevant now, replaced, abandoned. But Jesus shook his head and said, "I never let go. Not for a second." I saw that blindness wasn't just punishment. It was part of a divine timeline, a painful but purposeful pause. And during that pause, the Gentiles, people like me, were being given a chance to wake up, to prepare, to carry the message of the Messiah back to where it started. But here's the twist that turned my stomach. There are forces, dark ones, that want that blindness to remain permanent. Demonic voices whisper lies into governments, religious institutions, even seminaries. I was shown how some elite circles mock the Jewish roots of Christianity, rewriting the faith to be politically palatable, sanitized of its Hebrew backbone. The hidden agenda behind it all: keep the two halves divided. Because if Israel wakes up and the church finally understands her grafted identity, the enemy knows the time is up. I saw principalities hovering over cities, deceiving millions with a false version of love that avoids truth. A deception so clever, it even sounds like light. But Jesus said, the awakening will come, and when it does, it will shake nations. When I finally came back from that vision, I couldn't speak for 3 days. I felt like I'd been shown secrets buried under centuries of pain, politics, and pride. And yet, there was hope, a seed of something holy. Jesus made it clear. Israel hasn't been abandoned. She's waiting, just like he waited outside the tomb of Lazarus. Because when he finally speaks, the dead will rise, the veil will fall, and the eyes of a nation will open. But before that day comes, something, or someone, else is going to step into the spotlight. And what I saw next? It chilled me to the bone. I didn't think it could get darker than what I'd already seen. But then Jesus showed me a face. Not clearly, more like a shadow wearing a mask, but I could feel him. The man the world will call a savior. The man Israel will for a time believe is their long-awaited Messiah. And yet, everything in me screamed no. The weight of deception wrapped around this figure was suffocating. Jesus told me, he comes not with my spirit, but with the voice of the dragon. And in a single instant, I understood. This was the Antichrist. Not a cartoon villain, not a political boogeyman, but a real flesh-and-blood man, with charm, intelligence, and a power that doesn't come from God. He'll rise, Jesus said, in a time of global chaos, wars, financial collapse, people begging for peace. And this man, he'll offer it, especially to Israel. He'll speak their language. He'll quote Torah. He'll even talk of rebuilding the temple, something many Jews dream of. I saw religious leaders in Jerusalem embracing him. I watched rabbis declare, he is, the one. And my chest tightened. Because behind his smile was death. He was the master actor in this spiritual war, carrying a hidden agenda to hijack prophecy and sit where only God belongs. Daniel 9:27 came alive before my eyes. This false Messiah signing a treaty, bringing false peace, and the world will cheer. For a while, I saw television screens across every nation. This man on every channel, in schools, in churches, even in mosques. His name became a brand. He was celebrated as a unifier, a healer of nations. And yet, I saw demons whispering in his ears, feeding him lies to spread across the earth. The deception wasn't obvious. It was coated in unity, tolerance, and even religion. But Jesus showed me the undercurrent, pure rebellion against the throne of heaven. The elite will support him. Secret councils, hidden from public view, already know his name. They're grooming him. Behind closed doors, ancient occult symbols hang in rooms of influence. They've been waiting for this man, because he is their weapon. Israel, Jesus said, will trust him, at least at first. I saw the Western Wall filled with celebration. Young men dancing, saying, Mashiach has come, and my spirit wept. Because they'll think prophecy is fulfilled, but they'll be kissing the feet of a murderer. Halfway through that peace treaty, the truth will explode like a grenade. He'll enter the temple, yes, a new one, rebuilt by then, and declare himself above all gods. That's when the masks drop. That's when the abomination of desolation begins, and all hell breaks loose. I saw missiles, betrayals, blood in the streets, and Jesus, with tears in his eyes, said, they'll remember me then. They'll cry out, and I will hear. Coming back from that vision, I was drenched in sweat. I felt like I had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. This wasn't a movie. This was real. The stage is already being built. Technology, surveillance, globalist systems aligning. The world is being prepped for a false light. And unless people wake up, unless they understand the truth, they'll follow this man straight into damnation. That's when Jesus told me, warn them. The time of pretending is over. And just as I thought it couldn't get any heavier, he opened the next scroll in my vision. It was Daniel's timeline, and what he revealed about the 70 weeks changed everything I thought I knew. When Jesus opened that scroll in front of me, hovering in the air, glowing like fire etched in gold, I could feel the weight of history rushing through my veins. He said, "This is the blueprint. And yet even my people don't understand it." It was Daniel's prophecy, those 70 weeks that scholars debate but few truly grasp. As he unraveled it before my eyes, time itself seemed to bend. I was no longer watching history, I was inside it. I saw the decree to rebuild Jerusalem go forth, the countdown begin. And then, week by week, prophecy fulfilled with terrifying precision. The 69 weeks, 483 years, led right to his first coming. Palm branches, the cross, the rejection. But then, a pause, a breath. And he looked at me and said, "The final week has not yet begun." That's when the vision darkened. I saw a digital clock ticking, not with minutes but with judgments. Jesus told me the final 70th week, the last 7 years, would begin soon. I saw the world caught in a strange peace. Leaders signing documents, treaties hailed as breakthroughs, the same hidden agenda pulling the strings in the background. A fragile illusion. He said, "This is the calm before the storm." I saw the Antichrist rise during this week, just as Daniel prophesied. The first 3.5 years will feel like resolution. Wars pause, borders soften. People celebrate what they don't understand. But beneath it all, the trap is set. The deception will feel like revival, but it will be a spiritual war cloaked in unity and fake miracles. Jesus then showed me what he called the midpoint, a moment when the Antichrist reveals his true nature. That's when the tribulation will erupt like a volcano. I saw persecution sweep the earth like fire in dry grass. Christians hunted, Jews betrayed. Entire cities shut down under martial law. The elite watching behind mirrored glass, satisfied, their plan unfolding. They believe they control time, Jesus said, but this hour belongs to me. The suffering I saw, it was unbearable. Families torn apart. Technology used to track and control the masses. A one-world system that promised safety but demanded worship. The world will be asked to bow, and many will, not out of faith, but out of fear. What broke me most was what I saw in the churches. So many were asleep, entertained, distracted, completely unaware of what's coming. Some even joined the system, pulpits preaching compromise, truth traded for applause. Jesus whispered, "The tribulation will reveal what's real." And I saw a remnant, small, persecuted, but unshakable, hidden in caves, praying, watching, waiting. The great tribulation isn't just about wrath. It's about awakening, a final refining fire, a call to choose. Jesus said, "Every soul will be tested, no more masks." And I knew, deep in my core, this wasn't just a warning for others. It was for me, for you, for all of us. When the scroll closed, Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder and said, "You must tell them. The time of ignorance is over." He didn't give me a date, but I could feel the urgency. The world is dancing on the edge of that 70th week, and they don't even know it. What he showed me next, it was the turning point, the moment when deception becomes desecration, and it begins in the very heart of Israel, with a rebuilt temple and a betrayal that will split history in two. I didn't want to see what came next. I could feel my soul resist it, like something sacred inside me was bracing for impact. Jesus looked at me, not with anger, but with sorrow, and said, "This is what breaks the illusion." Suddenly, I was standing on a high place, looking down at the city of Jerusalem. It was modern, yet ancient. Crowds moved with joy. There was celebration in the streets, and at the center of it all stood the rebuilt temple, the third temple, gleaming, beautiful. A dream finally realized for so many in Israel. But something was wrong. I could feel it. There was a tension in the air, like the sky itself was holding its breath. Then I saw him, the one they had welcomed, the man they believed was the Messiah. He entered the temple with reverence at first. Cameras flashed, people wept, priests stood in awe. But then the atmosphere shifted, subtle at first, then violently. I watched as this man walked past the altar, past the veil, and into the holiest place. And right there, in the center of the temple that had been dedicated to the God of Israel, he stood still and claimed it as his own. "I am God," he declared. The moment he spoke those words, the ground shook beneath me. Jesus whispered, "This is the abomination of desolation, the one Daniel spoke of. The mask is now off." I could hear the cries. People outside the temple were confused, some horrified, but many still believed. That was the part that shattered me. Even after that blasphemy, many continued to worship him. Why? Because they were caught in a deception so deep it had taken root in their very identity. Jesus showed me the spiritual chains around their necks, doctrines, media, false prophets, education systems, links forged over decades, even centuries, by the elite who knew this day was coming. He said, "They've prepared the world for this moment, a counterfeit Messiah in a counterfeit temple, proclaiming a counterfeit kingdom." And the saddest part? Most won't even realize it until it's too late. I saw some begin to awaken. A few rabbis collapsing in tears. Families grabbing Torah scrolls and running. Shouts of betrayal echoed through Jerusalem. But this man, this Antichrist, didn't flinch. He sat where only God belongs, demanding global allegiance. I saw new laws passed overnight. Every nation forced to declare loyalty to his system or be shut out, economically, socially, even digitally. The image of the beast wasn't a statue. It was broadcast through every screen, every device. Worship or starve, they said. Submit or vanish. The spiritual war had gone fully public. The veil wasn't just torn in the temple. It was ripped off the world itself. When Jesus pulled me back from that vision, I felt sick, weak, but determined, because now I understood why the tribulation would be so great. The truth isn't just under attack, it's being replaced. And unless people open their eyes, unless Israel awakens, they'll follow a monster into ruin. But Jesus wasn't finished. He told me, "Even in this betrayal, I will birth something holy." And in the midst of the chaos, he showed me the spark of hope, something stirring in the hearts of Israel, a pain too deep to ignore, and a cry that would reach heaven's throne. The vision shifted. I was still in Jerusalem, but everything had changed. The flags were no longer waving. The songs had stopped. The city was quiet, too quiet. I could feel the grief in the air like smoke after a battlefield. Jesus whispered, "Now comes the heartbreak." I looked and saw faces, thousands, Jews of all ages, young soldiers, old rabbis, mothers clinging to their children, staring at the temple with blank expressions. The man they had hailed as Messiah had desecrated the holiest ground. They knew. The betrayal hit them like a dagger to the soul. And then something miraculous happened. One by one, people began to weep, not just from fear, but from recognition. It was like a veil lifted from their hearts, the deception shattered. They knew. That's when I heard it, the words of Zechariah 12:10 echoing like thunder. They will look upon the one they have pierced. I saw visions flood their minds, not just of the false Messiah, but of Jesus, the real one, the carpenter, the crucified, the risen King. His image didn't come through a screen or a preacher. It burned into their souls like a living memory. And the morning that followed, I don't have words for it. It wasn't political. It wasn't religious. It was personal. A nation realizing they had missed the very one their prophets had cried for. I watched grown men fall to their knees, whispering his name through tears. Yeshua, Yeshua. Jesus showed me how this awakening wouldn't be manufactured. It would be raw, organic. It would rise from pain, not persuasion. Even some of the very leaders who once denied him would confess, publicly, with trembling voices. There would be division, of course, some clinging to the old system. But many would be transformed in a single day. He said, I will write my name on their hearts. It wouldn't be about religion anymore. It would be relationship. I saw people gathering in homes, breaking bread, reading the New Testament for the first time with trembling hands, and every page felt like coming home. It was as if the nation had been asleep for 2,000 years, and suddenly, the alarm went off. I saw baptisms in fountains. I saw soldiers laying down their weapons, lifting their hands in surrender, not to an army, but to Jesus. I saw scrolls and smartphones open side by side, people connecting prophecy to reality. And I saw angels, hundreds of them, rejoicing above the city. Jesus said, This is the moment I've waited for. This is my bride returning to me. It wasn't just spiritual transformation, it was cultural rebirth, a healing of generations, and the world. They were watching, some confused, some amazed, some terrified, because this revelation wasn't quiet. It was global. Headlines couldn't contain it. The elite couldn't suppress it. The truth had broken through. But the story wasn't over. Because even as Israel awakened, darkness still loomed on the horizon. Jesus showed me armies gathering, nations raging, the Antichrist unleashing, terror against those who had turned. I saw Jerusalem surrounded. It looked like annihilation. But Jesus looked at me with fire in his eyes and said, Now, I return. And what he showed me next was more glorious than anything I've ever seen. Everything went still. In the vision, it was like time froze. But not with peace, with pressure. Jerusalem was surrounded. Smoke choked the sky. I saw tanks moving in, drones overhead, and terrified families huddled underground. The Antichrist had unleashed his fury, and Israel, newly awakened, freshly repentant, was now targeted like never before. I heard the cries, not just of people but of souls, a collective cry rising to heaven, Save us, Yeshua. And in that moment, the sky split open. I'm not exaggerating. I saw the clouds tear like fabric, and a light brighter than the sun burst forth. The earth itself trembled. And then, I saw him, Jesus, but not the gentle figure I met before. This time, he came as a warrior. He rode on, something not of this world, like a storm wrapped in fire. His eyes were flames. His robe was dipped in blood. Written on his thigh, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. He descended not like an angel, but like a king reclaiming his throne. And where did he land? The Mount of Olives, just as Zechariah said. And I watched, literally watched, as the mountain split in two beneath his feet. I could hear the rocks crying out. Soldiers froze. Some dropped their weapons. Others screamed. The Antichrist, once so full of control, looked up, and for the first time, he trembled. Jesus said no words at first. His presence was enough to silence the chaos of a world gone mad. Then came the armies, both heavenly and earthly. I saw believers who had died, now returning with him, clothed in light. And they weren't afraid. They were ready. Jesus raised his hand, and what looked like a blast of pure truth swept across the battlefield. Weapons melted, lies collapsed. The deception that had ruled for years couldn't stand in his presence. The Antichrist tried to flee, tried to rally, but it was over. With a single breath, one breath, Jesus consumed him. The beast and the false prophet were cast into the fire, not in metaphor, in finality. And those who followed them? Judgment, no appeals, no excuses, just holy justice. But here's what I'll never forget. The way Jesus turned his eyes to the people of Israel. They were bruised, beaten, but alive. I saw children run to him, elders fall at his feet. And he received them, not as strangers, but as sons and daughters finally home. He wiped their tears with his own hands. I heard him say, "You are mine." And I saw angels lift up a new song over Jerusalem. The mourning had turned to dancing. And for the first time since Eden, the earth felt healed. Not perfect yet, but restored. The truth had triumphed. The awakening was complete. And the spiritual war that had stretched across ages had reached its turning point. And yet even in that moment of glory, Jesus looked at me with one last instruction. Tell them this isn't the end, it's the beginning. Because what came next wasn't destruction. It was restoration. A world ruled not by fear, but by righteousness. And as he faded from my sight, one final vision took its place. A world under his reign, and Israel at the center of it all. When the dust settled and the battle ended, I stood in the aftermath of something I still don't fully have words for. Jerusalem was no longer bleeding, it was shining. And I don't mean metaphorically. There was a tangible light rising from the city, not artificial, not electric. It felt alive. Jesus was there, not just visiting, but reigning. I saw the nations sending delegates, not to negotiate, but to learn, to humble themselves. Jesus wasn't just the King of Israel. He was the King of the world. From Zion, his voice echoed like music across continents. And for the first time in human history, I felt the earth breathe without fear. No more lies, no more elite games. The hidden agenda had been exposed and destroyed. Israel was different now. It wasn't just a nation, it was a sanctuary. I saw families walking freely, scripture read openly, laughter and praise filling the streets. But it wasn't forced religion. It was joy. Pure, deep, sacred joy. The same nation that once pierced their Messiah was now his capital. The temple was rebuilt again, but this time, not just with stones. It radiated with the presence of God. Isaiah's words came alive before my eyes. Out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. No corruption, no bribery, just justice, the kind that heals, not controls. And from that healing, the entire world began to change. I saw deserts blooming, nations once torn by war now cooperating, sharing, listening. There was technology, but not like today. It wasn't weaponized. It was redeemed. Artificial intelligence, energy systems, agriculture, they all bowed to the order of the Lamb. People weren't slaves to devices anymore. They were stewards of creation again. Jesus told me, this is what they were made for. The truth had finally set the world free. There were no more elections, no more empires, only one king, and it worked. Not because of control, but because of love. That shocked me the most. The world didn't need 10,000 laws. It just needed him. But Israel, oh Israel, she became what she was always meant to be, a blessing to the nations. Not through dominance, but through revelation. Her songs became the world's songs. Her Messiah became the world's Savior. I saw Gentiles and Jews embracing, not erasing each other, but honoring each other's journey. The ancient tension was gone, the old wounds healed. Ezekiel's dry bones had not only risen, they were dancing. And Jesus smiled. Now my covenant is complete, he said. Now the awakening has gone full circle. And in that moment, I understood. Everything, every war, every deception, every near-death whisper had been leading to this. Not annihilation, redemption. Before the vision ended, Jesus looked at me one last time. "They need to know," he said. "Tell them what's coming. Tell them to choose me before the fire, not after." And with that, the light faded. I woke up again in my truck. Engine off, radio dead, my heart racing like I'd run through eternity. But I knew I wasn't the same. I had seen the end of the story, and now my job was to help others understand that we're not there yet. But we're close. Closer than most want to admit. You've heard my story, but this isn't really about me. It's about you. About all of us. There's a war going on. Not with bullets or ballots, but in the spirit. And most people don't even realize they're caught in the crossfire. I came back from that near-death experience with a mission to wake people up before it's too late. And now, I'm handing that mission to you. What do you believe is really happening in the world right now? Be honest. Have you ever felt like something just isn't right? Like you're being lied to on a global scale? Because I believe that feeling is the Holy Spirit trying to break through the noise. So tell me in the comments, have you ever had an experience that made you question reality? I want to hear your story. And if this message stirred something in you, subscribe right now to Truth from Beyond and hit the bell icon. The next videos will go even deeper. I'll be sharing things I haven't told anyone else. Visions, confirmations, and warnings that are already starting to come true. You won't want to miss what's coming. Go ahead and click on the next video that's on your screen. It connects directly to what I shared today, and it might be the final piece you've been searching for. I'm Ray Carter. Thanks for walking through this with me. Stay awake, stay ready, because Jesus is coming sooner than you think.